We've seen animations about our prophet's life. We've heard lectures and watched documentaries. But what if we saw our prophet's life through the eyes of those who were around him? What if we listened to the testimonies of those who knew him personally? How would they have described him? What kind of stories would they have shared? And most importantly, what lessons can we take from their experiences? In this episode, we will time travel back to the time of the Prophet Muhammad and hear his story through the eyes of those who lived it. Join us as we embark on this incredible journey through time and discover the Prophet Muhammad like never before. Abu Bakr was one of the Prophet's companions. He would become the first man to be called to Islam after the Prophet's father Abdullah, who died before the Prophet was 6 years old. Growing up in Mecca, Abu Bakr had seen the best and the worst of humanity. He witnessed firsthand the kindness and generosity of the Quraysh tribe, but also the harsh realities of life for those on the margins. So when he heard the message of Islam, which emphasized justice, equality, and compassion, he embraced it without hesitation. After the migration to Medina, Abu Bakr's unwavering commitment to the Prophet and the cause of Islam became evident. Despite facing numerous challenges and persecution in Mecca, he remained steadfast in his faith and played a pivotal role in the early Muslim community. His contributions were instrumental to the growth and development of Islam during its formative years. One day, while Abu Bakr was sitting in the mosque in Medina, a traveler approached and sat next to him. The traveler had come from a distant land and was eager to learn about the Prophet Muhammad and his message of Islam. "Tell me," the traveler asked, "what was the Prophet like? What made him so special?" Abu Bakr paused for a moment, lost in thought. "To describe the Prophet is no easy task," he began, "for his character was like unto that of the bright shining moon, which is beyond human comparison. Yet I shall endeavor to do him justice." The traveler leaned in, eager to hear more. "The Prophet was the embodiment of truth and honesty," Abu Bakr continued. "His words were always sincere, and his actions were guided by his strong sense of justice. He treated everyone with kindness and respect, regardless of their social status or background. In fact, I have never known anyone as generous as he was. During the period of ignorance, when the tribes of Arabia used to fight one another, he would call for peace and an end to the fighting. He was the embodiment of mercy, always ready to forgive and show compassion to those who had strayed. I recall an incident when one of the Ansar, a companion of the Prophet, came to him and said, 'Ya Rasulullah, I have committed a grave sin. I have killed my father and divided his inheritance among my brothers.' The Prophet looked at him with kindness and said, 'Do you think that Allah has created such and such rivers for the sake of those who are clean only, and not for the sake of those who are sinful?' Then he directed him to perform certain expiations, and gave him glad tidings that Allah had forgiven him. I myself benefited greatly from the Prophet's teachings. Before Islam, I used to associate partners with Allah in my belief, just like many others in Mecca. However, when the Prophet came, he taught me and many others the true path of worshiping one God. When I embraced Islam, I abandoned all forms of shirk and turned my life over to the service of Allah alone. It was the greatest change I could have ever imagined, and it brought me true peace and happiness." As Abu Bakr spoke, the traveler felt a deep sense of awe and admiration for the Prophet. He realized that there was much more to this messenger than met the eye. Bilal ibn Rabah was one of the most steadfast individuals who lived during the time of the Prophet. Originally a slave in Mecca, Bilal demonstrated remarkable courage and perseverance in the face of intense persecution. When he embraced Islam, his fellow tribesmen subjected him to severe physical and psychological torture in an attempt to make him abandon his new faith. However, Bilal refused to compromise his beliefs, showing an extraordinary level of patience and resilience. Despite the pain he endured, Bilal's commitment to Islam remained unwavering. His story serves as an inspiration for Muslims around the world, showcasing the strength of faith and the triumph of the human spirit in the face of adversity. One day, a young boy named Hassan approached Bilal and asked him, "What was the Prophet like?" "I've heard stories about him, but I want to hear them from someone who knew him personally." Bilal smiled and said, "Come, sit with me for a while, and I will tell you all about him." Hassan sat down next to Bilal, eagerly listening to every word he said. "The Prophet was the most compassionate person I've ever known," Bilal began. He treated everyone with kindness and respect, regardless of their background or social status. I remember when I first embraced Islam, I faced a lot of persecution from my fellow tribesmen. But whenever I saw the Prophet, he would ask me how I was doing and offer words of comfort and encouragement. His kindness and support gave me the strength to endure the hardships I faced. As Bilial spoke, he noticed the young boy's attentive gaze and continued, "The Prophet was also the most truthful and honest person I ever met. His words were always sincere, and his actions were guided by his strong sense of justice. I witnessed firsthand the impact he had on the people of Mecca. Many of them abandoned their old ways and embraced Islam because of his teachings." Bilial paused for a moment, lost in thought. "The Prophet was a leader who inspired his followers to be the best versions of themselves," he said. "He taught us to be honest, trustworthy, and compassionate towards others. I am proud to have been a companion of the Prophet and to have witnessed his incredible life and teachings." Hassan felt inspired by Bilal's words, and the more he learned about the Prophet, the more he admired him. Aisha was a young girl living in Medina when the Prophet migrated there. At the age of 6, she would become the wife of the Prophet, though they would wait to consummate the marriage until Aisha reached puberty. She would eventually have 2 children with the Prophet, but both would die in infancy. Aisha would go on to become one of the most important narrators of prophetic traditions, passing on hundreds of traditions through memory. Her testimony is found in many of the hadiths, which are the sayings and actions of the Prophet. One day Aisha was in the mosque with some other women when a group of children entered and started playing. One of the children ran up to her and asked, "Can I ask you a question?" "Of course," Aisha replied with a smile, "Ask away." The child hesitated for a moment, then asked, "What was the Prophet like?" "I've heard stories about him, but I want to hear them from someone who knew him personally." Aisha smiled and said, "Ah, you want to know about my father? Well, where do I even start?" The child sat down next to Aisha, eager to hear everything she had to say. "My father was the most caring and loving person I've ever known," Aisha began. "He always put the needs of others before his own, and was always willing to help those in need. I remember when we lived in Mecca, my father would often give away all of his possessions to the poor and needy. Even if it meant that we didn't have enough to eat, he never hesitated to share what little we had. I knew that my father wasn't just a prophet, he was the best example of a human being a person can be." Aisha paused for a moment, thinking back to all the lessons her father had taught her. "My father also taught us the importance of kindness and compassion," she said. "He showed us how to treat everyone with respect and dignity, regardless of their background or beliefs. He taught us to be honest, trustworthy, and to always strive to do what is right. I feel so grateful to have been the daughter of the Prophet and to have learned these valuable lessons from him. He was more than just a prophet. He was a father, a teacher, and a friend. I will always cherish the time we spent together and the lessons he taught me." The child felt inspired by Aisha's words and realized that the Prophet was more than just a religious leader. He was a role model for all humanity. Join us next time as we continue to explore the life of Prophet Muhammad through the eyes of those who knew him best. Each episode will take you on a new journey through time, allowing you to hear the Prophet's story from a different perspective. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified when new episodes are released. Until then, may the peace and blessings of Prophet Muhammad be upon you.